I'm just AV challenged. We're good.
You're right. Roll call first.
William Beavers.
Here.
Tara George.
Here.
David Simmons is excused. Margaret Wilson.
Here.
Ray Baker.
Here.
Rebecca Denino.
Here.
John Farquhar.
Here.
Jim McCready is excused. Mark Sousa.
Here.
Ron Warner. Hamilton County. David Brennan.
Here.
Jill Dunham. Ken Kurt is excused. Josh Wells. Carl Turner.
Here.
Montgomery County, Kenneth Chakowski.
Here.
Thomas Pasquarelli.
Here.
Aaron Robinson. Mickey Schwartz is excused. Anthony Agreska. Otsego County, Sid Chase.
Here.
Timothy Foster. Victor Jones is excused. Elizabeth McGowan, I'm present. David West. Schoharie County, Dan Bixby.
Here.
Owen Hahn is excused. Howard Huth.
Highlight of my week.
Judith Tiffany.
Here.
Peter Nichols. Advisory, Lou Jones. And we do not have a REMAC chair at this time. We have a quorum, sir.
All right. Everyone should have received the minutes from the June 20th meeting. Anybody have any corrections, additions, deletions? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Sid and Howard. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Guests, introduction to guests. Peter Wachowski from Perth Fire, Scott Friedlander from Perth Fire, John Wilcox from Wells. Hamilton County. Sierra Fountain from Lake Valley, Howard.
No, skip those two.
No. Can't even sign the right list after all of these. Justin Smith from Montgomery County Sheriff's Office and Alex Kaiser from Department. Correspondence.
We received from Cherry Valley Fire Department Emergency Squad a closure plan, which was also forwarded to the state. They are looking to close down and no longer provide EMS effective January 1st, 2025. So that's one. I received from the state, congratulations for your nomination on awards, but you didn't get it, letters. For Patrice Delameter, John Behrens, Matt Birch, Jeffrey Schofield, and for Montgomery County Sheriff's Office EMS Division. So I'll pass those around so you can see them. And then 2 CON actions, which I'll cover in transportation and standards.
Chairman's report, I really don't have a whole heck of a lot. The last meeting we had talked a little bit about REMO hiring a full-time position to help support this council, as well as their stuff. That has gone through and been approved. Beth is in that role currently. And congratulations.
Thank you very much. You're not clapping, Bill.
I'm not clapping for that. Not doing it.
Sorry, Bill. You had a taker.
He sounds sorry, doesn't he?
Secretary's report.
It's the tone of voice.
I forwarded Dr. Fisher a new medical director contract on September 10th. I heard from him yesterday that he had not received it, so I will be sending it out again. Please remember, if you change officers or anything about your structure of your agency, to submit a certified EMS agency update form, either the form for the ambulance service, and I just recently learned there is a separate form for the BLS first response agencies. What? Okay, that's it for secretary. Oh. Yeah. Sorry. Where's the aerial?
Treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report. Opening balances, okay, for REMSCO savings account, $4,152.13 was our opening balance, our expenses were $2,000. Our deposit was $1.05 in interest for a closing balance of $2,153.18. REMSCO operating account, opening balance $168.80, expenses $9,321.81, deposits of $10,000, closing balance $846.99. Our CON account, big fire at Oneana. CON account, $16,172.28, expenses $8,000, deposits $2,500, closing balance $10,672.28. I have successfully, after many back and forths with Department of Health, gotten 2 vouchers finally approved for payment, and there are 4 more quarters of vouchers to be worked on. However, I am through all the old stuff that was Phil's accounting, and the 4 quarters that are left to submit are all my accounting, which means that I'm not running to MBT Bank trying to get stuff from them, and it should be a lot cleaner and a lot quicker once I get the new budget approved. So I'm hoping that the money starts flowing back this way. That is my report, sir.
All right. Do I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Ken?
Second.
Who seconded? Bill.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Regional program update, Tim.
Okay. Contracts. REMSCO contracts are coming out. A number of regions have been notified already. Program agency contracts are still on hold, but the good news with the PA contracts, rumor has it they'll include a 10% increase for all the regions. So that would be nice. Also, regarding new contracts, we're going to include some funding incentives for recruitment, retention, and paramedic scholarships. Each region will receive reimbursable funding, meaning you're going to have to expend the funds up front, then you'll get reimbursed for them. But each region will receive funding of $20,000 for 2 paramedic scholarships and $15,000 to develop and exercise recruitment and retention initiatives. Training. REMO is hosting in conjunction with Hudson Valley a CLI course. It's a full course. It starts on November 14th. Registration information is available on the website. That's open to anybody in this region as well, or surrounding regions. Next REMO ARMS REMAC meeting is Wednesday, October 2nd. Just take note, if you'd like to participate in those, there's going to be a new start time. It's going to be 2:30. The REMAC and the academic committee have basically combined, and they're going to move forward with that new 2:30 start time from now on. EMS awards, as Beth spoke about the winners around here. Award plaques have been ordered. We also ordered for our region, and we ordered plaques for the ARMS winners as well. And we're working on hosting some type of awards banquet somewhere in the region. I'm hoping maybe in late fall. We're hoping to get our unified REMO ARM program agency contract soon, which will allow me to start a budget. In that budget, I want to include another line item for a banquet. But I'd like to see the contracts and stuff so we know what type of money we have to work with. REMO did have a state winner this year. Mike Prezioso from Clifton Park Half Moon received the State EMS Council's Excellent in EMS Quality and Safety Award. And I don't know if Beth mentioned it, but I mean, there's a very strong rumor out there that Phil's going to receive a posthumous state award also. I don't know if you guys heard that or not, but Ryan Greenberg spoke about that at our last program directors meeting.
The commission, his name has been submitted for the Commissioner's Award. The Commissioners, it has to go through everything still, and Ryan said that the Commissioner's Award tends to come screaming in at the last minute. So we're hopeful that he will receive the Commissioner's Award of Excellence, but we still have to wait.
Three new DOH policy statements came out last week, 2406 EMS provider certification, 07 advanced EMS provider course practical skills eval, and 2408 education regulation change log. The statements were sent out earlier this week. I sent them to everyone here. If you haven't gotten them and you want them, let me know. We'll get them back out. If anybody still needs health commerce access, let me know about that. And the only other thing I have is the new providers for your region. Joseph Malecki, new medic for AMR. Zach Hogan, AMT for Otsego County. Mike Lent Jr., medic for Cobleskill. Julie White, medic for Otsego. Kayla Edgar, medic for Lake Valley. Sydney Kay, a medic for Otsego. Chelsea Enright, Lake Valley medic. Roxanne Moore, medic for AMR. Jonathan Jewett, medic for Oneonta Fire, along with Anthony Capristo. Adriana Scabi is a new medic for Lake Valley, and another new Lake Valley medic is Cora McAllister. And that's all I have. It concludes my report.
Thank you, Tim. That's, in his report, he mentioned that 10% increase. This is going to be the first increase that program agencies have received since 1997.
So, yeah,
27 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, well, it's 10%.
Sure it's not the Medicaid program?
10%, and, you know, then we've got that additional, you know, 20,000 for paramedic scholarship and 15,000 for recruitment and retention. We don't know for sure that that's going to be part of this fiscal year, correct?
They say it is, but there's not 100% certain. And the contracts are somewhat overdue too, so how long you're gonna have to exercise spending that money is gonna be unforeseen as well, so.
And one thing that Tim and I had discussed is that setting up, I'd like to see kind of a joint committee from both regions working together on process for recruitment and retention, and another committee for how are we setting up to expend the money to fund the two paramedics, so that we have one process between both regions to administer, not having an ARMS process and a remote process.
And that's good news, and I sit on the finance committee at State Council, and one thing that we want to make sure, and Beth and I and Tim have been, you know, in touch frequently, is we want to make sure that every dollar that we get as a council, whether it's ARMS, program agency, whatever else, that we expend every bit of that, because otherwise they're going to take it away from us. So we, you know, these initiatives that are coming forward, we're going to want to make sure we get 2, 3, before we decide we're going to divvy up the paramedic stuff, you know, as many as we can to you know, expel that $20,000, and the same thing with that, you know, recruitment and retention. We want to make sure we expend that money. Otherwise, it's just money that's going back to the state, and we're not going to see it again. So we've been working pretty diligently on keeping track of that stuff. So, training committee.
Actually, a question on that first. So I should probably know more about that because I'm a director of the paramedic program, but I don't. So is there a way for us regionally to ensure that when we're spending that money on a student to go, that we're getting something back in return? So is there a way to basically say that, hey, we're going to give scholarships to whomever to go wherever, but then they're going to work here in our region for a certain period of time?
That needs to be determined and set up by the
Okay.
the committees. There's nothing that is in the, there's been no guidance on any of that. It's
Right.
just, here it is, you figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the council and, you know, the regional council and the employers or agencies in which these people go, you know, are going, are in our region and we're expending that money on, there's gonna have to be some communication so that doesn't fall through the cracks. But there is no process at this point.
That's good. That makes me feel like I didn't miss something when I thought I did.
You
I
did.
had somebody approach me because they were like, oh, well, you know, you're the only program in that region, so are they all going to come to you? And I said, honestly, regionally, I don't care where they go. It's that they work in the region that would be my concern. If you're getting a scholarship from the region, you should still be providing care in the region. So if you want to go to any paramedic program and then you want to go to Stony Brook and then come back up here and work, we would still, you know, I could see giving you a scholarship for that as long as we, the region, are gonna benefit from it.
And the reason that this came about is that in last year's budget, Ryan announced that we're going to be statewide hired 80 paramedics for his task force. It's going to be 8 paramedics per regional economic development area, zone. And if we already said, someone said, listen, we're already tight in staffing and you're gonna take 80 paramedics out? And the solution was to fund 2 paramedics per region for 5 years, which is going to, in theory, put more than 80 paramedics back into the system for the 80 that he's pulling out for state employment.
But we have to wait 5 years to get them back.
Correct.
Helpful.
Has he ever said what he plans to do with these 80 paramedics?
I hear mixed things. I hear fly car,
Like patient care, though?
I hear fly car, and then I hear that there will be these regional paramedics available to the SMOC, the State Medical Operations Command Center, for when an area is exhausted and needs to move somebody critical, which is that surge center. So it's not clear.
And they would be, I guess I'm just asking questions that we don't have an answer to. Okay, cool. Never mind.
There's lots
We
of
get the
plans.
answers after it takes effect.
Yeah. I'm just trying to picture implementation. Like, I know the state EMS office is an agency, but they're a BLS first response agency last I checked. So I don't know.
Well, I think it remains to be seen. The state's gonna mirror the state economic development map, which I believe is broken up into 10 regions.
Yeah.
So these medics are going to be few and far between. How they respond, where they respond, what they respond to, I think is still up in the air a little bit.
Right.
And Alex is giving me the, no, you aren't saying anything?
I don't have too much more I can share, because there's still a lot of moving parts right now, so.
But this is more of a clinical patient care centered project than it is an administrative support project.
Yeah.
Cool.
Takes some water in a little pond.
You might as well keep talking for the.
Well, I was gonna say, Jim's not here, right? So, Maggie, you have anything you wanna throw out there? Tara?
No, we haven't, Matt.
Okay. We have a CIU coming up in December. I'm actually working on the flyer right now, so we'll push that out. Some of the stuff that was brought up at CMAC, REMSCO, and the subcommittees last week in Saratoga, and Beth, Tom, spot check me if I forget stuff, but EMS education is still chugging along really, I almost hate to say it because I'm going to jinx ourselves, but really making some effective change. So last year's paramedic class was the first one, I think, in the state that did not have a practical skills exam. It's dead, at least for that. So
For paramedic originals.
for paramedic originals that are in it, right, and the policy statement's out now, so you can read it. But finally, after knowing that they've gone through a year of check and balance and evaluation, they don't have to take a high stakes and risk exam, or if they forget to say scene safety BSI and show their jazz hands 3 times, they'll fail for the whole year, even though they're competent and great providers. So that was fantastic. It also comes with an $8,000 to $10,000 payroll savings for us, because we don't have to pay the evaluators for those days, or the prep days and practice days, setup, knockdown, etc. So eventually, when this gets rolled out, I actually sit on the subcommittee for that's looking at this. It should be really nice for the rest of the state. I do see that this is probably going to trend to a point where this will shuffle down to lower levels also. If you have thoughts, concerns, questions, bring it to me, and I'd love to bring it to the committee. We've kept the committee small so we can actually get some work done, but seriously, if anybody has an opinion, we really do want to hear it. They're still playing with certifications. I don't know if everybody saw it or not, but the National Registry has on their website, for judging by your face, Tom's seen it, a press release welcoming New York State as the 50th state to now accept National Registry. It's not quite exactly that direct or clean, but yes, one of the policy statements that came out said that there is now a better avenue to have a registry card accepted in New York State. I wouldn't even say better, just different avenue. Alex, I don't know if you want to step in on that or add to it, but
I know the policy statements made, or not the policy statements, sorry, the press releases caused some confusion. I'm not as in tune on the education
Yeah.
side, but if you have questions, definitely reach out and we can facilitate making sure we get the right answer to you.
I think,
The way I take that policy statement is that it goes back to COVID days as where the executive order allowed you to take a national registry exam and file for reciprocity for the New York State card.
right.
So I'm assuming that that is what they just took that out of the executive order and made it into.
Yeah. I think this was, and again, I'm not that part of the state, so I don't want to speak on their behalf. But if I look at the policy statement and then look at how the registry rolled this out, I think the registry just picked out the pieces that they liked to publicize and highlighted those and left out the public part of the policy statement for us. Although they did include the link to the policy statement, so I have to give them credit for that. But we're not quite the 50th registry state, we're just closer. So, other things, Beth? We, SUNY Cobleskill, had a situation where we had a student complaint come in, and in looking at the complaint, we actually drove process to try and get some additional mental health resources to help us better guide students. And once we had a licensed social worker and a clinical psychologist actually look at the situation, they brought forth really strong concern. Our licensed social worker was an EMT also, so it held a little bit more weight for borderline personality disorder. And if you're not read up on that, because I was a little bit but not great, you really should. It was eye-opening for a lot of us, and because it surprised us to have a social worker who was in EMS sit across from you and go, this person probably had borderline personality disorder, they're dangerous, and they probably should not have been in this field in the first place. And so that stemmed questions like, well, what does New York State do for a psych evaluation to get into EMS?
You gotta be crazy to get into here.
Right, you have to be crazy to get in and crazier to stay, right? So if you're continually in bad mental health, we get to keep you. But in all sincerity, it really brought forth some really good questions that I hadn't even really thought of. So like most of the time when we get stuff like this, we grabbed it and kind of ran with it. So I've paired with our psych department and have talked to a couple other counselors, and we're pushing out a small awareness piece as part of a CIU so that instructors really can identify potential people with these traits to better resource their students and better protect themselves. I think that this is also going to end up as some form of a state rollout. I sit on state training eds, so I kind of dropped the grenade at the end of the meeting last time and said, hey, look, think about this. We're going to need to talk about it at December's meeting. But there's really no catch at all for any EMS provider. And when you think about it, we're putting these people in patients' homes. And, if I started listing off some of the things for borderline personality disorder, you'd all sit there and go, either, hey, that's me, or that's somebody I work with. So, as I like to joke, I'm not passive-aggressive, I'm aggressive-aggressive. But it's about really kind of taking a look at these things and, just a small snapshot. But if you've ever worked with a student, provider, et cetera, who was uncomfortably willing to share with you, buddied up to you, made close contact with you, et cetera, and then all of a sudden you stuck something professional and stuck the landing and kept it straight and maybe counseled them or told them they were doing something wrong, and then there was a snap and an immediate change where you were afraid that maybe you should check your brake lines on the way home. That's one of these key things. And there's a lot more that goes to it, but when you start thinking about that and start thinking about some of the people that you work with, right, exactly, there's all the smiles, you're like, that person, yeah. So it was eye-opening, it still is, and I'm hoping that we get, if nothing else, some good education out there for some awareness level stuff. And my hope, my personal hope, is that we are able to drive process to get, I think right now EMS is in a good spot where we do a lot of reactive mental health care. We don't do a lot of proactive mental health care. So maybe this is something that we can do to actually prevent some of the problems that we're facing. I'm also working with state EMS a little bit. I'm going to talk to the investigations unit to see how many of these things would pair with investigations that are currently going on and try and get some back data. I talked to Peter Brody about doing some actual data mining on this to see if they could provide some insight into investigations that were settled, how many would have been weeded out by this prior, et cetera. But I think at bare bones minimum, we need to relook at the functional job description for EMT that still says you should be able to read a map, which is cool, but probably at this state, program a GPS or use your phone. So unless you work in places like I do where we don't have service, but
Where do you get maps from?
right, maps. Yeah, and I still have my 11 County Jamapco map, man.
Jamaica went out of business.
I know, but I still have mine. So that was kind of interesting. I thought it wasn't going to be that big of a deal when we mentioned it at the Training and Ed Committee, and it definitely caused a ruckus in the room. A good one, but nonetheless a ruckus in the room. So if you have thoughts, bring them to us. Any training needs that you guys have that the training committee here regionally can look at? Who's got classes going on? How are they? I hear great things coming out at Seago.
There's one going on in Lake Pleasant right now.
Okay.
John McMillan would be the man.
Oh, cool. Okay, so Max up there?
Yeah, he's teaching.
I tell you, man, he left the state in state EMS, and he has really stepped out to do a lot of education regionally. It's really nice.
He's very, very good at
He is. Yep.
I got a question on, I was gonna ask Alex, but maybe better pushing out here. Our last county EMS council meeting came up where they're wondering about nurses bridging to EMTs or up. And that's something that can be done?
There is a policy statement that covers it, yes. If you email me, I'll send you the policy statement. Any of that comes with, it's still the core sponsorship's responsibility to do an assessment as to how that person fits into the education piece. So all it is it's advanced standing. So sometimes, the way it's worded, it leaves it as RN. If you have a school RN who's been a school RN for 25 years and just a school RN, you probably aren't going to have great success. If you take an ER RN,
Right.
you probably have greater success.
We actually have these two agencies. One agency has 3 nurses that work in hospitals, and then another agency has one that works in an intensive care unit that
Yep.
is looking to bridge to EMT.
Yep. Yep, there's an advanced standing policy. You right there, Beth?
Leave him over there.
Spider up
Speaking of mental health, none of the rest of us see anything.
I'm sure that sees nothing too.
Right.
That I don't have to deal with every
We
day.
should zoom in on this now.
One part you don't mess up.
Yeah.
Anything else for training and ed? Is there anything that you guys want regionally? Saved.
Still looks like nothing.
Okay. And then I'll make a final plug for the state, but Vital Signs is in Rochester, downtown Rochester. Lovely downtown Rochester. All right, well, downtown Rochester at least. And they've really done some fantastic things this year to try and drive attendance and to try and do different things with the conference. I know it seems like it's coming out last minute. It is. But we're going, really, I think you should take a look at it. They've got some good speakers lined up. They're trying to do things different. They've got a skills evaluation / competition going on. They've got some national EMS physician speakers that are coming out there for pre-cons. So take a look at the Vital Signs Conference. It's worth looking at.
There's also going to be a new session for CME, agency CME coordinators,
Right, yep.
which I think would be interesting.
That's on Friday, Jean's doing that, right?
Friday at like 4 to 5.
Yep.
Also, you have listed on the State Vital Signs Academy calendar, a CIU for Thursday, October 10th.
I do, huh?
You do.
Cool. Okay. I'll leave myself a note to tell somebody else that that's not the case.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, transportation standards.
On September 29th, we received from Paseco Volunteer Fire Department Ambulance with transfer of authority CO in action. The Paseco Volunteer Fire Department Ambulance CON would be transferred to Speculator Volunteer Ambulance Corps. The application was sent to committee for review on September 2nd and comment and feedback was received. The applicant was contacted for correction and the requested items were provided to the committee on September 20th. Maggie. Would you make that in a motion form?
The motion that
That
the
it's deemed-
application is
deemed
complete.
Second for that? Any discussion? All in favor?
I will forward the application to the New York State Bureau of EMS and Trauma Services for fitness and competency. And I will schedule a vote for the next meeting. So we'll have a CON action in the October meeting. Montgomery County Emergency Medical Services, on September 23rd, 2024, we received from Montgomery County EMS 2 hard copies and a redacted electronic copy of their application for permanent CON for the Montgomery County agency. They are currently operating under a municipal CON that expires on August 31st, 2025. The application is incomplete upon receipt as it is missing 2 fitness and competencies and payment. Once these items are received, it will be sent to the CON committee for review.
Hey, Jenny.
And I did receive the fitness and competencies today, and I have to provide Justin with some sort of invoice for the check, and then we'll move that along.
All right. State Council report.
Fortunately, some of the stuff has already been covered. If you have not already figured it out, the state has started issuing 4-year certifications starting July 1st. It is not retroactive. It will be, once you recertify, your next certification period will be 48 months. The Bureau is restructuring. It's going to become a division with 3 bureaus underneath it. The 3 bureaus, the first one will be administration, the second one will be surveillance and investigations, and the third one will be emergency management. So you will start to see it become a much bigger entity. They're going to be hiring a lot of people. The vehicle regulations public comment period closed in early September. There were enough comments that it is going back to be revised and go through another public comment period, and we likely will not be able to vote on those regs until February. So that the regulations I sent around to the committee members are going to be revised, and we'll send them around again when they get the revisions out. The iGel demonstration program brought their final report to the state. It was a successful demonstration program. And at this point, they're going to continue the demonstration program until the state can put together some policy around using it as an airway adjunct. They had suspended new agency registration in the pilot program while they were trying to wrap up their final report. They will now be accepting new agencies to the BLS iGel program if anyone wants to apply and start utilizing that. While we were at the state, we were fortunate enough to hear that the governor signed 2 bills that we had been advocating for. The first was for the ground use of bloods, and that is in the regulatory building process right now. Fortunately, the regulatory building process had started because air was allowed. So now all they need to do is continue that and add the word ground. So that will be a regulation that we see coming forward. And the other bill that was signed was to allow agencies to bill Medicaid for treatment in place and for transport to pre-approved alternate destinations. So that means if you are doing a BLS Medicaid, let me back up a second. Now the state has to put a state plan amendment into Medicare at the federal level to get the matching funds. There are 4 other states who have this type of matching fund for treatment in place and transport to alternative destinations, so they do not anticipate problems, but it's a process, it's gonna take time. But once it's all approved, you will be able to bill Medicare for BLS, ALS 1, and ALS 2, which means you can get reimbursement for diabetic weight loss, Medicaid reimbursement. You can get Medicaid reimbursement for cardiac arrests. That would be your ALS 2. So, and that is something that is a big step forward for us in terms of funding. The pediatric readiness survey, approximately 250 agencies answered the survey, which means about 25% of our agencies answered. And I do not have any data back around from that. We'll probably see it at the next EMS for Children. There will be at least 4 more regulatory packets coming forward. The next one after vehicle regulations and bloods will be performance standards. It is going to require reporting from agencies. It is going to ask for statistics on monthly staffing and dropped calls, your responses to mutual aid, use of mutual aid and staffing. And it's going to start with trying to understand what agencies are low-performing agencies that are not getting out, doing their calls, and relying on mutual aid to stay in business. I'm going to hand around a document that came out of the safety committee. It's called this, I put it in the handouts with the email. It's called the Saving Those Who Save Others. It's strengthening mental health services for EMS personnel. What I thought was particularly good on this was the appendices that would help. This is a sample of it. I sent the entire document to everyone, but this is, if you had a line of duty death, it gives you a step-by-step process to handle it in your agency. A new definition for EMS was proposed. It reads, emergency medical services means a coordinated system of interoperable healthcare response, assessment, treatment, transportation, emergency medical dispatch, medical direction, research, and practitioner education that provides essential emergency and non-emergency care and transportation for the ill and injured, and enhances preparedness and mitigates risks to the public. That was passed as unanimous at the council. That definition of EMS has not been changed since Article 30 came into existence in 1975, 6, somewhere in that range. Dr. Afienko was approved as our REMAC representative, so he will be at the next meeting. I distributed with the minutes the QR code for delay at hospital reporting, offloading delay at hospital, and the awards portal will open in November for submission of awards, with a deadline still being July 1st. But out of 18 regional councils, I think somewhere around 7 councils were the number that submitted awards this year. They hope by opening it up earlier, they will get more awards. And it doesn't have to be just through the council here, but we can go through that process here. Anybody can place an award, nominate an award, and especially the innovation awards don't go through the council.
Beth, just for clarification on that, the state EMS council awards have to go through the region. The innovation ones do not.
Correct.
Okay.
And the next meeting is December 3rd for committees and December 4th for the council.
I encourage, I mean, in the last, certainly in the last 12 months, EMS, not only in the education side of things, in changing policies and extending certifications, we have made some huge progress when it comes to the laws, right? So we have direct payment that starts in January of 2025. That was a huge push at State Council. It was a 15-year push, to get this finally approved. The blood is another big push, and tip and tad, the treatment place and transport to alternative destinations, was huge. And one of the things that we see is when all of our people come together, we can really push a lot of this legislation through. So there's a lot of things, like if you have an idea in EMS, I encourage everybody, you don't have to go to both days of state council, but I encourage you to at least go to the committee day. It's a long day. It's, 8 o'clock in the morning the committees start, and, they run until 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock on that, on that first day. CMAC and REMSCO is just kind of a repeat of what happens in the committees on the day before. So if you don't have to worry yourself for 2 straight days, but I highly encourage people to at least go to the first day of the committee meetings, because you can hear what's going on around the state, all of that stuff that we're trying to push through, how the Onion Group, NYSVERA, all of these different lobbying and, associations are really trying to push this stuff. And the more people that we can get behind that, the better, we are to help push this through. It took the governor quite a while to sign the legislation for the direct payment. She was receiving a lot of pressure from the insurance. The insurance company took, 6-7 months for her to sign that. The tip and tad, not so much. And we just kept that momentum going, and we want to keep that momentum going in the EMS, in the EMS world. We're being heard, finally, after years and years and years, and we've had some pretty gigantic wins. Whether you're volunteer, commercial, bill, not bill, they're pretty big wins, for the EMS community, and certainly rural areas.
And day 2, the CMAC SEMSCO day, is streamed. So even if you go on the first day to physically be there, give some input, talk to some folks, do a little bit of networking, you can find out on day 2 from your own computer while you're sitting in your office, sitting system status, whatever, whether the CMAC and the SEMSCO actually did what the subcommittees hoped that they would do with what was pushed forward. So,
and if you can't watch it that day, the webcast is
Recorded.
posted, so you can watch it at your convenience.
yep.
When you have trouble falling asleep.
All right, REMAC.
Looks like I'm up on that. I'll be handing around a list of disciplinary actions since June, when I last reported. There have been 12, so the state's been very busy. The one that I find the most interesting is that they had their certification revoked and were assessed a civil penalty of $26,000. I have never seen anything that has been that large in terms of civil penalty. At the meeting, there was discussion about CARES data. I have put it back on my list to work on, getting Susie Barnett to set up some evening trainings to enroll and teach each agency how to do their cardiac arrest registry data. They're still discussing exploring areas of reduction in lights and sirens. They are still talking about destination facilities and understanding the capability of receiving facilities. They're going to be following any cases that are brought forth in which patients were potentially mistriaged with stroke and trauma and went to the wrong type of facility. So if those are brought forward, they'll look at them. In terms of EPCR vendors, Otigo went to State Elite, Skolwright Ambulance went to Zoll, Edmiston went to State Elite, and Town of Hancock went to State Elite. There was discussion on the hospice protocol. How do you document your disposition? is not an RMA, it would be considered a treat-in-place disposition when you write your PCR. And there's going to be a joint memo coming out on the REMO approved medications, which are actually listed in the minutes I sent out yesterday for June, about which medications REMAC approved in the optional formulary. There was more discussion on BLS canceling ALS response, which is the REMAC here, ARMS had put back into place a while ago. At present, the REMAC is not going to offer any opinion. However, it could become a patient care issue which may require REMAC involvement. The ARMS REMAC advisory still stands. The other thing that we discussed was potentially putting a committee together to work on a protocol test construction.
All right. County reports. Hamilton.
EMT course and speculating is 5 students.
Is that just an original or?
An original, CFR, and EMT refractor.
So it's also CMT CFR?
Fulton.
We just put out a survey just to see how many people we could get that want to take EMT or EMR. So we're hoping that something will be scheduled early next year.
Montgomery. Nothing, Justin? Otsego?
Otsego, I'll do that, and twice examine. Otsego has a basic class started. I believe that's in Hartwick.
No, the SUNY original and refresher has started.
Okay.
The
AEMT is going to start.
the Cooperstown EMT original and refresher, I believe, starts this week.
Right.
And the AEMT will start in October. And enrollment is still going on for the AEMT if anyone is interested.
Okay, that's absolutely.
Beth, if you send me a flyer on that, I'll push it out. Or whoever wants to from that county.
To Harry. Anything we haven't seen on the news?
Has it been that long?
Too soon?
It's a little, no, it's
Wow.
fine.
The funny story is I was working the sheriff's office that night, and when I heard that, one of my ambulances called out at Cobleskill Hospital. So I was probably in the same pucker factor as you were.
I really didn't hear about it until I got phone call after phone call after phone call. Going, oh God, why now? Luckily, yeah. So our ambulance got stolen. Luckily, no one really got hurt in it, other than when the ambulance hit the other car. It didn't really force too much change for us for there. We already had the policy of lock, key out. You know, we have a button in the rig, take it out. It's just pushing it forward. Hey, make sure you're actually utilizing it more. We had several crews that were very good about it. This crew just wasn't at the time. And that's all going through state investigations and insurances before we get a new rig act. None of our services have changed because of that. We still have our 2 rigs. They're still functioning the way they always have. Let's see here. Cobleskill back to ALS. They have a new provider, Michael Lent Jr. He's been doing a few calls. He's doing pretty well with it. No issues I've heard of so far. And our agency, I believe, is all set with the state to go to the 6279 as an ALS. It's already pinned in the state as ALS. I'm just waiting for the appropriate agency to say, yay, let's do this. I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter what day we do that.
Just pick a day and then we can just.
Cool. I will need, like, myself to stay as a secondary for 4799.
We'll
Or
take
can we
that
mirror
offline.
that over so they're both the same amount of
We'll
Okay,
take it
never mind.
offline and discuss it there.
different place? And eventually we'll dissolve the ALS side of it once I get a CME program for the new one set up. Otherwise, status quo, calls go out, we handle them, so on and so forth.
Our EMS classes are starting, we just got approval, or extension of our grants that we have with Margaret Hospital for EMS education, so that's another 5-year extension on that grant.
Four font.
Education, paramedic scholarships. And
Looking for one name.
Hopefully I know.
do that. We don't do a lot of applicants, so we do take applications from contiguous counties. If anybody has anybody looking for a way to pay for the program in their contiguous county, they can send us, or send me an email and we'll get that information.
Does anybody have anything? 'Cause I don't think I have anything.
Alex, you got anything you wanna bring up in the new business for us?
I think you guys pretty much covered it all, the new policy statements, updates from council. That's about it.
And Howard, are you interviewing for fall of 2025 yet?
You mean for students?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, no, but they started calling in May of this year for fall of next year. So, we really won't open applications for, correction. You can apply right now for the paramedic program that starts in fall of 25 and runs through 26. You won't be interviewed until November, just because I need a couple months to kind of catch up on other stuff. But yeah, we've already got about a dozen people who've already called for interest since May, and we're still capping our class at 35. It is a hybrid course. It's high flex, which means the Tuesday lectures are actually able to be attended remotely via Zoom. We don't do it the way everybody else does it, though. We've got large screens in the classroom. We need to see you and hear you. If we can't see you and hear you, you're not there. So it needs to be set up in a professional environment someplace remotely, but you know, we're doing it that way and doing it successfully. And then Thursdays, you're on campus for labs, and then clinical rotations are scheduled outside of that. But the last 2 years, we've had about 80 applicants for 35 spots. So if you know anybody who's interested, have them get a hold of me sooner rather than later, so at least get some academic advisement down and make sure that, you know, you're taking the right things in the right kind of pipeline for things.
And finally, there's 3 handouts up here, the REMO ARMS information sheet, who to reach out to at the program agency for what type of issue, the program agency report that Tim gave, and a list of helpful emails for New York State Department of EMS, Bureau of EMS.
I have one thing that I'd like to bring to the group. Dan, heads up, bus. Can we put together a committee to look at reducing or stopping the use of lights and sirens? Go ahead, Dan.
I mean, it could maybe be a good idea. I've been kind of voicing that a couple times here to actually implement it. And I think the last REMO meeting, they were pushing that forward too as well, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
Looking for more and more and more of it. So it really is a safety culture thing, and to push the issue I think is a great idea.
I'd like to see us do something regionally and then put out a recommendation from the region.
Definitely, yeah. I always find when I brought up to like the chiefs meetings and whatnot, when it comes to the fire side, they're incredibly against the idea. A few of our volunteer agencies already do it. I haven't seen anything that would actually or seem to be a hindrance to any patient care at all. I believe it is Valatia is like 90-some% with no complications whatsoever for reduction.
I was just gonna recommend contact Steve Meehan from Galatian.
That's who I stole my stuff from.
With permission.
With permission.
Right.
Yes, I said, hey, can we do this? Sure, okay. But yeah, I would definitely get something actually as a formal group to say, hey, we should probably look at or do this. Whether however you want to write the language is up to you, I guess, individually. It's the problem is because it's a at-will state or whatever you want to call it, home rule state. It's hard to force anyone into it. So I was actually trying to make it as a county-wide policy, and got yelled at a lot. So maybe a letter from us as a group saying to encourage it would be a good idea to place to start. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I've been in support of that for a long time.
What about outreach? Let's look at this from an outreach thing. Could I set up through Remo a Zoom meeting, invite all the agencies and have Steve Meehan and you, Dan, present what it would be, you know, what you've done and how it's affected things. And it might be better just to start with some education instead of saying, here, we want you to do this.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I'm
Can we
good with it.
provide both the carrot and the stick at the same time?
What's the stick and the stick?
I mean, I'm good with that, but I'm trying to be softer and
Oh,
gentler.
okay.
So, I get what you're saying, Beth, but I feel like this is one of those common sense things that most people know we just don't do. So,
Tradition, really, is where it
yeah,
comes
well,
from.
we've always done it this way,
Exactly.
Dan. So maybe we can get something started. Maybe we can do a group between or the two regions. Yeah, how's Remo handle this? Do they do anything with you know?
We're not
Hudson
steering
Mohawk.
anything right now. It's pretty much agency specific. Several of the agencies have jumped on that though, following Felicia's lead, but we're not promoting anything just yet, region-wide.
Do you think that your REMSCO would be interested in working with us to at least
REMAC would.
look at the data?
The REMAC would. I
Okay.
don't see why the REMSCO wouldn't be.
It's on the agenda too for REMAC, right? The idea of
Excuse
REMAC.
me?
REMAC's agenda has on there too, right?
Yeah, it's
To
already
reduce.
been presented to those guys, and they're very supportive of it.
I mean, even if we at the program agency aren't driving it, we can certainly facilitate it.
Right, that's my thought. So,
And I can tell you that this is obviously being looked at state safety committee meeting as well, so if we can help steer that process with that, that would be fantastic. I might even take a lead on it at the state level, but I'd have to think about that.
You want more?
Second helping.
In Speculator, I'm reviewing every record to ascertain whether I can discern from the record whether lights and sirens were indicated. And I would say 1/3 were not. That's going to be presented in 2 weeks at the Speculator group. I expect some substantial pushback, but that's my big QI project for this year, is to try to decrease the use of lights and sirens. And just an example, somebody had been hospitalized repeatedly for pancreatic pain over and over again, and just discharged 3 days before, and now it's lights and sirens yet again. That's just one example. The excuse was, well, he's a sheriff. So,
That's a
but,
great answer.
but that's where I'm pushing back on that from a medical review. And I may learn some lessons from that where there's some systemic problems, but I can't speak to that yet.
so it seems like we've got 4 people who are willing, and I'm not willing to stir the pot without offering to lick the spoon, so if you want, I'll sit on it too. So, anybody else?
Dr.
We
Smith?
are. I educate all my EMTs that they're responsible for whether or not they're to be used. And if I have a problem with a driver who doesn't listen, we have a conversation. Because it's not your call. I had one driver tell me, and I had to get rid of him a while back, he goes, there's a patient in the ambulance, I'm running lights and sirens.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Not a great
I
outcome.
didn't tell you to turn.
Tom, are you really willing to chair that here regionally at least while we do this?
Well, I'll sit on the committee, sure.
Pasquarelli, chair. Sounds good.
If not, I can always.
Got a nice ring to it.
Is anyone else besides
cares?
Dan Bixby, Dr. Smith, Howard Huth, and Tom interested in sitting on this?
I-
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it would take much to coax Ken into feeling the same way.
Do we just throw him under the bus?
Especially with his
There you go.
director right here. Yeah, I think we probably, well, he's obviously researching it, he's kind of.
Well, I'm pushing Ken on this issue, so.
Perfect.
Okay, he's not here, he just got assigned.
And I'd like to see where that, what kind of data we come up with, right? So where is this happening more frequently, right? As a commercial service, we've, obviously for years, we've not run lights and sirens to hospitals. You know, so is it?
Never mind to
certain parts-
hospitals, to scenes.
Well,
I work rurally, like, I turned it on to move the cow, that's it. If I can't make it through,
I have
like,
multiple examples of everyone's just going lights, lights, lights,
Right.
and I do not, and it's like hurry up, and by the time I get there, they still haven't put their car in park.
Right.
And I didn't go lights and sirens, do something that was a little more higher,
Right.
Acuity. It just really doesn't make any sense. There's plenty of literature out there on it. Dr. Funk did her thesis on it. There's a traffic and safety one on there. So,
Statistic.
there's two new
Yeah.
ones out there. One's like the joint safety one, and there's a newer one before that. I can't remember the name of it.
And
Yeah.
So
Dan, would you please forward to me any documents that you're aware of or links to those
Okay.
documents so I can
I think I have them somewhere.
start an email group for this?
Alex, is anybody working at this state level yet? Is anybody like assigned to it?
I think there's some discussions, but I'm not sure exactly where it is.
Okay.
I can find out.
We just want to make sure that if they're working on something, we're working with them, not against them,
Yeah.
or against them with a purpose, either way.
For us, it starts at education, you know, your EMTs, tell them, you know, you're in charge.
It's the one
And
thing.
then
that-
culture
the one-
kicks in, and they see what the other guys do, and they go,
Not necessary.
you know,
So
I
what-
got into it with the whole idea of going licensed sirens, and until I couldn't drive, I was too young. Like, well, now what do I do? You know, so you get thrown in the back, and the EMS bug bites you, and before you know it, you're a paramedic for your life. So
String of
it's just
bad
culture,
decisions.
right? I know.
It's an abusive relationship when we're still in it. Yeah. It's funny too, because driving is one of those things that most EMTs and paramedics do a lot, and yet we have zero training on it.
Well, we're supposed to have some training on driving.
Not
Some
in the
kind of
curriculum.
EVOC or SEVO. I think it was in the state curriculum
Well, that's
somewhere.
an agency thing, ours all goes.
Right? It's agency
You know.
specific.
Unfortunately, my training officer's a fireman.
Yeah.
So
I do get a lot of
my
resistance from them.
EMTs, you know, to say, not necessary, don't use it.
Alrighty.
Any other new business? If not, our next meeting is Wednesday, so October 24th. It's here,
Yep.
October 24th. With that being said, if there's no other new business, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Triple A.